Recording in progress.
Right.
Winch.
We'll have a run through first, Maria. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
I can remember how to do it. Right, here we go then.
How can I get rid of this meeting? Isn't
You've got to just do the little cross on there.
no?
There's an OK or something.
Or an OK or something.
Got it? Is that
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
Yes.
Ooh.
Right, okay, there we go. Oh, whoops, hang on a minute.
Fabulous. I'm just going to turn the light off so I can
no problem.
screen properly.
So just before we start, it's great to welcome you back again, Maria. Thanks for judging tonight for our Malc Leach trophy. Hopefully you've enjoyed the photos. It's good to have you back, and we look forward to your comments. I said in the email, we're looking for a first, second and third, and any highly commended, whatever you feel.
Yeah.
And obviously we'll hold them back. No need to score them. I'll hold them back, and then you can, if you want, and we can go through them at the end. Yeah.
Perfect. So while we're just waiting for the first image to come up, I'm actually going to read out the brief. So I've got to take my glasses off to do this. So I've got the wrong glasses on to look at the screen and look at my phone. So it says here, I've heard club members say they are not creative. Not so. Below are some competition entries that are very clearly creative. If I had my way, I would rename the club the Creative Camera Club to remind us what it's all about. However, it's only my power to decide on the theme of this year's Malcolm Leach Trophy, and I would like it to be all about imaginative and creative images. For me, and I hope the judge, it doesn't matter one bit if a creative image is produced straight out of camera in the setup, choice of subject matter, viewpoint, photographic method, etc., or in the photo editing suite, or a bit of both. It's the result that counts. The images below provide examples from all these groups. Please, it says here, put your creative juices to work. The only criterion is to demonstrate an original and creative approach to inspire and encourage fellow club members. So I'm going to pop my glasses back on so I can see, and I'm ready to go.
Lovely. So here we go then.
Well, this certainly has your very own stamp on it. And I look at this and it looks to me as though what you've done is you've taken that image, you've got a grab shot, perhaps on the tube or at a train station or somewhere, of this massive crowd coming down the escalator. But what you've done is you've isolated these two very interesting people very carefully. I think you've got them so each one is looking into the photograph, so that holds us beautifully in the image. And then what you've done is you've done something very creative with the background, which has helped. It's quite colourful, but at the same time, because the two people are isolated and standing out from it, it does help to isolate them. So I think this is a great start to this evening's competition, and certainly it's a technique which I've not ever seen in Camera Club competitions before. So for me, this is a first, and it's very, very unique. Thank you. Well, I do very much enjoy this because I can see this passion flower here. What you've done is it looks to me as though you've taken the shot, you've sliced it in half, and then you've mirrored it. So what we've got here is this amazing face that's staring out at us. We can see the two red beady eyes. We can see an open mouth and either a tongue or lots of teeth popping out, and almost like one of these tutu effect skirts. So I think that really is quite well seen. And in fact, I'm really, really pleased because the colours are really nice and vibrant. The background is darkened down, so it's isolating the subject. And I think that has actually been really, really nicely done and nicely presented. As with anything that has eyes in it, that's where we look first of all. And my only critique would be perhaps getting those eyes, or the catch lights that I think you've popped in those eyes, just that tiny bit sharper, just to really focus our attention in on that. But nonetheless, I think it's a great shot and a really good example of being creative. So we'll see this one again, please. Well, this does look like a building of some sort, and certainly just like almost an abstraction of that particular structure, because what we can see here, we can see we've got some glass, some windows, we've got some I'm going to call them stanchions, that's probably not the right word, and we've got some ventilation going on. But what you've done is you've taken all those components and you've realigned them and you've made it your own. The pattern on this is incredibly strong, and what I do like about it is the conversion to black and white. I think that's the right choice for this particular image, because it allows us to enjoy all those wonderful shapes you've created without being distracted by colour or anything, or reflections or anything like that that's going on. So this, I think, is a very good example of making something your own. And as we talked about in the brief at the start, that's what it's all about. It's letting your imagination run wild. I'm not going to hold this one back, but I do think you've really shown us your skill as a photographer here, and also as, I'm going to call you, an Imagineer. Okay, Arctic Hues. This, when I first looked at this image, I wondered how you did it, and I wondered whether you laid your camera flat on the floor and suspended a light above it and allowed the light to sort of like swing around the camera and had a set shutter speed on that. Because what this done, it reminds me, I'm going to show my age here a bit, but I'm sure you won't mind. As a child, I had a spirograph, and it really, really reminds me of that. The little plastic wheels that you'd stick your pen in and spin it round and round and make all these wonderful patterns. And this, for me, has that feel about it. I really do enjoy those colours that you've used as well. I think the cold and crisp tones not only remind me of the time of year, but I think it stands out really beautifully against that very, very dark background you've got there. So an interesting image, and I like the concept very much. So we'll see this one again. Wow, I look at this and I wonder what kind of insects you've got in your garden. They're certainly making a bit of an indent on your vegetation. I'm not sure whether this is a rose. I don't think it is, but it certainly makes me remember when I had an infestation of sawfly larvae on my roses. And first of all, I was transfixed by them because I'd never seen them before. And I thought, oh, they'd be a good photographic subject. And then I realized the decimation they created. And since then, I've been, every time I see them, scissors, plastic bag, chop the leaf off with them on, throw it away. But I see that what you've done here is, instead of doing that, you've perhaps allowed them to feed happily, and used the remains of this plant to make something that's quite different. And I like it that you've isolated it on a black background. I think that works really well because it makes the shape stand out really beautifully. And also the lighting, I think you've got a little bit of backlighting going on there, but that really does allow us to enjoy all the textures of this. Is it as strong as some of the others in tonight's competition? I'm not quite so sure, so I'm not going to hold it back. But what I am going to do is perhaps make a recommendation for scissors and a little plastic bag, so you can chop these little creatures off and throw them away in the bin, just like I've had to. Thank you. Well, this is very, very different, very pleasing and very gentle image. And the first thing that strikes me is that you've used your shutter speed very creatively. You've allowed a little bit of movement and a little bit of softness on that water. And I think that works really, really well. We've also got a very limited colour palette. We've kind of got hints of lilac, hints of peach, hints of plummy colours, but we've got that beautiful light as well coming down and really adding dimension, and also a pathway across that water. And I enjoy that feeling very much. Very strategically placed. You've got a gull coming in, so I think that has added something to your work as well. So I enjoy having that in there very much. However, I will point out that if you're going to composite something into your work, do be careful, because what I can see is I can see a little square around that gull where you've perhaps cut it out and not sort of like rubbed it away on your layer. So that caught my eye, and I'm so sorry that, you know, you missed that, because otherwise I would be holding this one back. But because of that, I'm not going to. But again, I think it's a beautifully crafted image, and I think you've done very, very well indeed to get that just enough movement, and also presenting it in that portrait format is quite interesting as well. So thank you. Wow, that is a jacket and a half, isn't it? And certainly this, I think it's a lady, is really making a statement with it. And my goodness me, I wonder not only does it light up in the night, I wonder whether it warms up in the night, because that would be quite a nice thing to wear at the moment. What for me makes this is her smile. It's not that prominent, you know. We look at that jacket and we think, oh crikey, look at that. The colours are great, but then my eye lifts up to the top and I can see her smile, and that has a really welcoming feel. She's got her arms open, and it's all about, hey, you know, look at me, come and give me a hug in my fabulous jacket. And I really am enjoying that. And also I like the fact we got a little bit of reflection in the background as well. So for me, that does add interest to it. I'm not going to hold it back tonight, but it has given me a huge smile to look at it. So thank you. Right, is a judge allowed to jump up and down and say, I love it, I love it, I love it? Peter, am I allowed?
Yeah, you can do.
I
Carry
love
on.
it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I think this is absolutely fantastic. To me, this, you know, has really made tonight's competition. I look at this and it brings a huge smile to my face. You've used the sprouts, you've used the carrots, you've used the parsnip. Santa is there. There's beer on the table, and there's a little Merry Christmas sign. The cat's playing the piano, and the reindeer are coming in the door. So I think that is super creative, and I just so enjoy it. It gives me a great feeling of joy, because you have been incredibly creative. We can look at it perhaps objectively as a still life, and to make a still life image work, we need to be quite careful in the way we place the components. But what you've done here is, I think you've placed them all perfectly. The way they're positioned, we've got lead-in lines coming from the edge. The carrots have an implied lead-in line. The piano again has an implied lead-in line. For me, it's all about the parsnip with the whiskey, and that Brussels sprout next to it. They're perhaps a little worse for wear because his eyes do look a little bit goggly. But I think that is a lovely, lovely piece of work. And what is not to love? We'll see it again, please.
I wasn't sure whether you're going to hold that back.
Oh, Peter, for shame. Oh, this these plants are absolutely beautiful in the garden, and I certainly have quite a large collection, and every year they seem to grow because they seed very, very readily. And looking at this in the way you've processed it is incredibly creative, because what you've done here is you've really, really made, by the way that you've processed it, you've really, really made all the details in the petals, the little freckles on the petals, and the veining as well. You've really, really made that stand out beautifully. So I think that is very, very interesting indeed. I'm looking around it, and although the background is quite busy, because the texture of the flower is so different against the background, I do think it stands out quite well. And for me, you know, I think this is a very different way of portraying this particular plant. So I am going to hold it back, please. well, Christmassy patterns. And what I can see here, I can see a beautiful star. And of course, at Christmas time, we always think of the Star of Bethlehem. And looking at this, I can see we've got flecks of gold and flecks of red in it. So again, very Christmassy colours. And we've also got some lovely rich green in there as well. So it reminds me of Christmas trees. The shapes as well, as they lead in from the edges, also have a reminiscence of Christmas trees. So I think you've very aptly titled this one. So that for me is very pleasing. And again, what you've done is you've seen an architectural feature and you've combined it, you've chopped it up and you've made something else with it. So I think that's very creative indeed. I'm not going to hold it back tonight because I think there are some others that are just that weeny bit stronger. But I take my hat off to you for having an eye for doing this, because certainly looking at it, it almost looks like I'm looking down the tube of a kaleidoscope. And there I go, showing my age again. My goodness me, this certainly is an incredibly colourful car. And once again, you've aptly named it. I like the fact that, you know, this car is such a vibrant red. And what I can see as well is the owner has a lot of pride in it. You know, you could almost walk along and you could lick that bodywork. It's that clean and shiny. It probably wouldn't taste great, but you could lick it. It does look like it's that sparkling. The background you put it on is also equally vibrant. And I wonder whether having it perhaps on something that's a slightly toned down might have just made us enjoy that car that little bit more. And what I will say to you is, if you are cutting out and if you're using Photoshop, there is the most wonderful thing that says when you hit your W, your key on the keyboard to isolate your subject, there is something that says cut out subject, and Photoshop does it all for you, which is absolutely the most easy thing to do and the easiest way that I have ever cut anything out myself. So I urge you to look at that, because I can see there are a few little anomalies just around the bumper and just around the underneath of the grille of the car, but it certainly is a creative piece of work. You've put your own stamp on it, and I'm sure we're really all enjoying that amazing colour scheme you've got there. Thank you. Well, as I'm sure you know my age roughly by now, you'll know that I'm a child that used to watch Doctor Who, and seeing this, my goodness me, I used to play badminton as well, so I now feel a bit traumatized that I had Daleks in my bag at one point. So but I think this is again another super creative piece of work. It's a great load of fun, and the way that you put it together as well has worked so well, because you've kind of shown us each stage of the shuttlecock and then the Dalek kind of emerging from it. So I think that really is a very clever piece of work. I like the photography on it as well. I like the fact that we're looking down on it, because then it allows us to see the shape of the Daleks very, very clearly. And it does add dimension to it. And my golly gosh, I'm never going to look at a shuttlecock in the same way again. But we're going to see this one again, please. Do you know, when I saw this, the first thing that popped into my head was, I don't know whether any of you have read the book, A Handmaid's Tale. Something about it reminded me of the ladies that were all dressed in red. They had these huge wimples and a flowing frock, and it would cover everything. And this, to me, has that feeling about it. It almost feels like a person in a flowing frock, because I can see the shoulders, I can see the arms sort of almost being held out, breasts, a tummy, and that wimple style hat on the top. So I think this is absolutely superb and a really, really creative piece of work. I love the processing. It works beautifully. As to whether this is a real building or you've actually constructed those waves yourself, I don't know. And to be honest with you, I don't care because I think it's lovely. We'll see it again, please. Well, I do love the garden birds, and certainly when I first saw nuthatches, I was amazed at how narky they were with everybody else. All the little tits come down, and this great tit has obviously, you know, marked its claim on perhaps some food that's around, but the nuthatch has flown in and basically given it what for. And I kind of love that interaction with this. You've got a great creamy soft background, but the moment you've captured for me really does work so beautifully. It really is all about that moment of surprise. The nuthatch is flaring its wings and the great tit is kind of jumping back in surprise. So that is a beautiful moment. Lovely catchlight in the nuthatch's eyes, and the nuthatch is absolutely superbly photographed. However, tonight's competition is all about being creative and imaginative. And for me, this is more of a wildlife shot. And no matter how much I love this shot, I can't hold it back tonight because I don't think it fits the brief as well as some of the others. But my golly gosh, what a super moment. You should be really proud of yourself for capturing this, and please make sure you enter it into other competitions because I'm positive it will do very well. Well, I think you've named this one very aptly because it does have an incredibly dreamlike quality about it. And I look at this and the reflection of the sky in that very smooth water has worked beautifully for you. Whether you've created that yourself or whether you've photographed it and duplicated it, it doesn't really matter, because what this is, it's a competition about being creative. And I can see by what you've done, you've really worked hard at that. The reflection itself, I think, is absolutely lovely. And the way you've positioned the subject in the frame, for me, works very well indeed. And I love the fact that, you know, those trees on that little island there, they're in silhouette. So they almost make like a statement against that beautiful, dreamy sky. The only criticism I would make is that, unfortunately, it looks like your horizon has perhaps had a glass of wine before it was finished, because it looks just like it's heading upwards on the left hand side. And I wonder that whether a little bit more work post-process just to either smooth that out or put like a more straight line to cut it off in a straighter line would actually allow us to really enjoy that piece of work. But I take my hat off to you because the colours in it are absolutely fantastic, and it must have been a spectacular moment to sit and watch that sunset. Thank you. Excuse me. Well, yes, and this does have echoes of Andy Warhol about it. Although he wasn't a Heinz fan, I believe he was a Campbell's soup fan, but that doesn't matter because you've told him to eat his heart out, and offering him this wonderful array of tins and sauces that you've got here with a wonderfully open door that invites us straight in. What you've also done is you've really made this your own because you've done some creative work on it, whether you've used the distort tool or the warp tool. You've done something to it post-process, which has really made it your own. And I like the fact that we've got, you know, almost a triangle going on within this particular image. If you look at the tomato soup, Then above that, we've got the tomato ketchup. Then over on the left-hand side, we've got the pink salmon. So that kind of makes a triangle, which is a really strong compositional element. So I think that does work really well. I like the lighting as well that you've got on this, because we can clearly see everything, and you've used your camera skill very, very well indeed. Am I going to hold it back? I'm not on this occasion. I'd love to see just a little bit more work done on it, just something to make something really ping out of it. But I think you're on the right tracks, and I think with perhaps a bit more thought, you could really make this type of work sing. So thank you. Wow, I look at this and my curiosity is immediately piqued, because the two gentlemen in the middle that look like they're in period costume, I'm not sure if they're real or not. Certainly the third gentleman from the left, he perhaps looks like he could be a mannequin or a model. I'm not sure. But the two gentlemen on either side of him, where they're leaning over and smiling away, it raises, it raises questions. So immediately you've caught my attention, which as photographers is what we all want to do. The lighting on it is actually very, very strong, but I think that works well. It's directional, so we can see lots of texture, I suppose, and interest in the folds in the clothing that they're wearing. And for me, that really does give this image an added dimension. I like the fact as well that the background is nicely out of focus, but I'm finding that I'm questioning where is the creative content in this one. So I'm not going to hold it back. And also what I'm going to suggest to you as well is when you're processing, just be a little bit aware that sometimes you can get haloing. It's something that's easy to sort out around the edges of an image, say like you might have a light line or a dark line going around the image. Just be aware of that, because some judges will be quite picky about that and mark you down. But it's still a pleasing piece of work, nicely framed. And as I say, it raises questions. I'm very curious about it. So thank you for sharing it. Well, this leaf detail that you've shown us certainly does have an element of fading glory. The brown spots on it does look like it's perhaps, coming to the end of its life and it's starting to turn brown. The reds, I think, are natural. I'm not 100% sure, but I have the feeling that, maybe that's kind of like the natural colour of the leaf. I'm not 100% sure though, as I say. I love it that you've zoomed right in and you're showing us the detail, and I can see all the veining throughout that as well, which is very, very pleasing. The way that you've positioned it as well, just kind of tilted the top off to the left, adds a strong diagonal into your image, which again gives it a backbone and gives it a strength. So it elevates it to just something more than a pattern image, because if it was just a straight photograph of the leaf and it was all lined up, it might not be quite as strong as this one. Do be careful though when you take this type of shot, just to get your focus on something. There are a couple of areas that don't look quite sharp to me, and that is disappointing, because what I want to do is I want to enjoy all those veins, all those textures, and the beautiful light coming through that leaf. Thank you. Another example of using your camera skill very creatively, because what we've got here is you've got a slightly longer shutter speed, which has allowed all the I suppose I'm going to call it a melee of all these people sort of like racing round a corner or racing by you. But what we can see is we can see all the dirt flying up. We can see movement in the wheels as well. We can see the guy coming in from the left hand side. is going a lot faster than some of the others. So for me, this has a great feeling of energy and a great feeling of vitality about it. And, you know, we look through the image and there isn't really anything that's particularly sharp. But what I can see you've done is you've perhaps done a little bit of panning, because I can see a little bit of horizontal movement in some of the parts behind the bikers here. But what I do like is I love that movement. I love that feeling of energy. And I love the fact that it looks like they're almost motorcycling through a bed of autumn leaves, and it's all flying up and around. So I'm not going to say this is going to be in my final selection, but I think I'd like to see it again, please. Yeah, and as photographers, you know, certainly during lockdown, we all struggled. We weren't allowed to go out anywhere. And that made us kind of, I suppose, rethink our focus on what we were actually going to be photographing to keep, you know, to keep our interest going, to keep our hobby alive. And I can see what you've done here is you've looked for something that's in and around home to photograph, and mixing oil and water, and certainly on a highly reflective surface as well, really has enabled you to show your photographic skill and your creative skill as well. You've thought outside of the box, excuse me, and you've chosen how to, first of all, position your subject, which is the oil floating in the water, to make a pleasing pattern. But you've also done something about the background as well. You've positioned it so we've got all these amazing rainbow colors coming through, and I like this very much. The composition for me is really, really strong. Lovely diagonals going through it, lovely triangles going through it. The way that you've cropped it as well, circles within a square do work very, very well. And I like it as well that it kind of fades from a lighter top to a darker bottom, because that fits in with, you know, what I look at on a daily basis, because the ground is normally dark and the sky is normally light. So I would like to see this one again, please. Yes, ghostly encounters. And I look at this and my imagination starts to kind of make shapes and tell stories. And the slightly bluer colour smoke over on the right hand side looks like it's a gentleman leaning against a wall that's looking back over his shoulder at somebody on the left hand side that's perhaps sneaking up on him or running towards him. And for me, that really does make a story. And the green smoke at the bottom could almost be a dog running along as well. So you can see, just by a simple, you know, a very, very simple piece of work, I'm getting lots of information. But what it's actually doing is it's allowing my imagination to have freedom and to make my own story. And I think that's very, very clever of you, very creative indeed. So we'll see this one again, please. My goodness, glad we're wearing hats. Somebody has got a sense of humour, and I know that because there's another image coming up very soon that, as I say, somebody might get a bit of stick about it. And I love your imagination with this one. You know, these two little statues in the garden, or at a garden centre, or a stately home, or wherever it might be. You know, I look at their faces, and certainly the lad on the right hand side, he's got a face that is, oh my God, I wish I wasn't here. And having that big bobble of snow on his head, certainly for me, it has a humorous side to it, because it's almost like he's being put in a situation that he doesn't want to be in, but he's suffering it very, very grudgingly. The little girl on the left hand side is just kind of got a look on her face as though to say, for goodness sake, just get on with it. So it has that element of humor, and I like that very much. Am I going to hold it back tonight? I'm not. But what I will commend you on is the way that you've exposed this image on the snow, because it's often very, very difficult to get a good exposure on snow. But I think you've really achieved that here, because I can see detail throughout, and certainly for me, there are no burnt out areas. So well done for doing that. Thank you. Yes, so who, I want to know, who is Joker?
I'll have serious words with them afterwards.
Yes, I think you should, Peter, and it's probably you. So, well,
How dare you?
Let's look at this piece of work that we've got here. It really is, as a wildlife image, it really is very pleasing. We've got this beautiful monkey or ape isolated beautifully within their habitat. So I think that's really, really important. And that's the first tick in the box for you. Secondly, we've got some great light coming in. It's backlighting this creature, and we can see the texture and the detail in its fur. So that's another tick in the box for you. We've got catch lights in the eyes. So what that does is it gives the creature life and vitality. And that is so, so very, very important. What we've also got is we've got a full stop in the image. That tree trunk going down the right-hand side acts as a full stop, because Europe, I'm sure you've heard me say before, as Europeans, we read an image from the left to the right, just as we read a book, and having something strong on the right-hand side just stops our eye from falling off the page. So I think you've done really, really well with that. As a wildlife image, for me, it's really pleasing. But apart from the title, I don't think you've been very imaginative.
Title.
It's a very imaginative title. However, the image itself is perhaps not as creative as I would have hoped for this type of competition. I'm not going to hold it back. But I would like it noted, please, for the record, that somebody has got a black mark on their name.
Okay.
I don't know who it is.
I'll let you know who it is later on.
I shall find out, and
not fair to mention Gary's name in the middle of the competition.
Your card is marked, Gary. That's the last hug you get from me. Right. Well, this is a lovely image, and I like this very, very much indeed. I've seen several images of this place, and it really does look like something that should be on my bucket list of places to go to take images. You've picked a day where it looks like the light is quite high, and it's also looks fairly sunny as well. But what that's done is it's given you some beautiful reflections in that water. You've also taken it from a slightly different angle to what I'm used to seeing for this particular one, and you've included some foreground in it as well, which again is slightly different. But the creative element in this is you have chosen your shutter speed. I can see that that water has been smoothed out. I can see that that sky has got some movement in it as well. So well done for putting your own stamp on this. And again, positioning yourself very differently to what a lot of other photographers have done. I'm not going to hold it back tonight, but I do applaud you for giving me a different view of something that in a different part of the country has been very, very well photographed and does crop up very regularly. Well, it's going to be a bumpy landing, and I look at this and I wonder where it was taken. I can see that it's a Vickers Varsity T1. It tells me that at the top, and I wonder whether it was at Brookwood or somewhere like that, or perhaps the Museum of Army Flying down in Middle Walpole or somewhere around there. I'm not sure, but I always enjoy this type of shot because it is very interesting to look into the cockpit of a plane. I can see that this one has been retired. It certainly looks as though it's seen better days. And the two gentlemen that are sat in charge, so to speak, I'm very pleased they're not flying. So, and if they were gonna think about flying, they would probably have to clear all the stuff that's on the other side of the window as well. So for me, that suggests that it's perhaps a static aircraft that you can go and sit in. Is it creative? I'm not so sure. To me, it does look, it has more of a feel of perhaps enjoying the day and taking an image of something that you don't normally get the chance to look at and see. So in tonight's competition, it's not going to be held back, but it is a really interesting piece of work nonetheless. And it certainly has allowed me to see into something that I wouldn't normally get the opportunity to look at. So thank you. Well, Katie double take, and Katie is certainly a very beautiful woman here, and what I do like is the very sympathetic way that you photographed her. We don't have eye contact with her, but in this case I think that is the right choice to make. She has a more wistful and perhaps a more gentle feeling about this portrait. If she was looking directly at us, it would certainly have a very different feel. It wouldn't be quite as soft and perhaps quite as ethereal, because the way it's been processed here, it does have a slightly ethereal feel, and certainly the image that's over on the right hand side does definitely have that quality. Am I a little distracted by the hair going across the face on the left hand side? I am a bit. However, because the eyes aren't looking at me, I can kind of live with that. So that does feel all right. You've got some quite bright light on her shoulder that's bang in the center, and I think that is the lightest part of the picture. However, the eyes on the image on the right hand side are, the catch lights are so nice, and the lighting is so soft and so flattering that I think I can forgive you that. It's very, very pleasing, beautiful textures in it. So I am going to see it again, please. Well, I have a crystal ball, and I often go out and try and get some good images with it. I haven't succeeded as well as you have, and that for me, you know, gives me a bit of a, I suppose, a kick up the bum to go and get on and try it even more. What I love about this is the strength of colour that you've got in the centre part of the image. What's going on within the crystal ball is really, really pleasing. I can see there is sunlight on the fields. I can see, you know, there are animals in the fields and even perhaps a person. And for me, that does work very, very well. I will also commend you, because I know when you take this type of shot, the image that appears within the crystal ball is always inverted. So you've obviously done a little bit of work just to spin that round and rotate it as to how it should be. However, I'm not entirely sure that the horizon is quite straight. It looks to me as though it's dipping down a little bit on the left-hand side, and perhaps for me, having it in a square crop would work just a little bit better. Everything else outside of the crystal ball is out of focus. We know what it is. We can see that it's an out of focus landscape, and you don't need to include quite so much of it for us to understand what it is. However, I do think it's a nicely done piece of work, and I'm certainly envying the fact that you've taken this image and I can't see any fingerprints on your crystal ball, unlike me when I do it. So I would like to see this one again, please. Okay, we have another one that reminds me of my spirograph days, and certainly some incredibly striking colours on this. The white contrasted against that really hot pink works very well, and again the two of them, the two colours interlinked on that dark background, again allows us to really, really enjoy the shapes that you've created using Oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Using what I think could be a perhaps a pen torch on a piece of string. I'm not sure, but I would love to know. Perhaps you could share it with me at the end. I'm just going to grab a throat sweet, if that's all right, and have a slurp of my water.
Did you want to take a break in a minute, or are you okay to go through?
Well, if we go up to say 31 or 32,
Yeah.
and then we can have a 5-minute or so.
5-minute break.
Right,
Yeah, fine. Yeah.
Okay. So I like the fact with this one that this particular image really does have what feels like dimension, because the way that the pink light has worked on the screen, it's almost like a double snail shell. You know how the spirals work away from you when you look in the opening part? It's almost like two of those connected together. But then we've got this wonderful white area as well that kind of just gives us a bit of extra feeling about it. I'm not going to hold this one back though, because I think the one earlier that we saw, the blue one, was just that bit stronger and appealed to me that little bit more. Thank you. Okay, no cat on this hot tin, on this cold roof. And indeed, what we've got here, it looks like a detail of a pan-tarred roof, but what you've done is you've isolated one of those tiles there. But what I do like is the little specular highlights, the bokeh or bokeh, as some people call it, of the frost or the snow just glistening on that. I think that has a very wintry feeling about it. And I think it's quite imaginative of you as well, just to put this little isolated section of the roof under us for, you know, for us to have a look at here. I do feel that perhaps you've got some quite light areas here, both at the very top of the image and also the very bottom of the image, where the light is clearly falling on the frost or the snow. And that does tend to pull my eye away from the centre part. And the centre part is where you've chosen to have your focus. And that's the part that I want to be drawn to instead of being pulled away. So I'm not going to hold this one back, but it's quite an interesting pattern piece of work. And as I say, those little specular highlights for me really do add something to the image. So that's very pleasing to see. Wow, old photo. And I like this very much. I think what you've done here is you've obviously gone to a museum or Bewley or Marstones or someplace of that sort. You've seen this wonderful example of this old vehicle outside what looks like a real shop, and you've got that image to remind you of the day. And not only that, you've chosen to process it so it actually looks like a vintage photograph, and I think that's very, very pleasing indeed. Not only have you done that though, you've put it on a background. You looks like you popped it on a table or a piece of plywood or something, and you've curled that photograph as well. So you've presented it to us in a really, really different way. And not only have you curled it, you've remembered to put some shadows underneath the curl. So it does look like a photograph that's come out of a box or a tin that has seen better days and is no longer flat. So for that, I absolutely applaud you. If this were mine, I might also consider adding some texture onto this. And when I say texture, what I mean is perhaps a few scratches, a few sort of like blots like you see in so many old photos, because the photograph itself, it absolutely works, but it just looks a bit too clean for it to be a properly vintage photograph. But I really appreciate the amount of work you've put in with this one, and I think we will see it again, please. wow, the unknown planet. I look at this and it looks to me as though it's perhaps a detail of a light bulb. I'm not 100% sure, but what I do like is I love all those colours that you've got there. And certainly we've got something that almost has like a watery feel in the circular shape on the right hand side, but then it's contrasted against those fabulous yellows and those bright greens as well. And I think that works very, very nicely indeed. The circles are all the shapes are all very, very circular, very, very flowing, very, very soft and round. And having it with that arch going over the top as well, I think that does sort of pull it together. And the nice contrast for me as well is we've got those that just offset vertical lines going down through the image behind the darker sort of like circular shape. Am I going to hold it back though? Tonight, I don't think I am. And the reason for that is I don't think that it's quite individual enough to stand out amongst what tonight you show me some really, really beautiful and interesting work. So, but what I will say to you is, you know, you've got some absolutely fabulous colours. They contrast superbly, and it certainly is a very interesting piece of work, and I do find that I'm looking at it and asking questions. So thank you for sharing.
Right, we'll just have a 5-minute break then.
Cool. I should go from the up.
Sorry, I
That's all right.
realised I'd stopped the recording.
Oh, we've got some strong light coming in from the top left hand side, and it's faded very well away on the bottom right hand side, so that gives us that feeling of dimension about this. But the swirls and the shapes and the patterns are absolutely fabulous in this, and the way you've isolated just a small part of it as well works beautifully. I can see that perhaps we're going out of focus sort of like near the top and the sides, but that doesn't matter because this for me is an image that's all about those wonderful swirls. When I get a photographic competition to judge, I always say to my husband, come and look what I've got to judge tonight, because he's always curious. He's not a photographer, but he's always curious. And he looked at this and he said, oh my God, he said, can you see the pterodactyl in it? And I was like, what? And then I saw it, and I hope you can see the pterodactyl as well, because I think for me that does add an extra something. So this one will be a holdback, please. Well, this one raised questions with me. I'm not sure how you did it. I'm going to take a stab at that you photographed part of a cacti, and then what you've done is you have turned it into a brush, and then used the brush to make swirls over your page. And if you've done that, that is incredibly creative. And, you know, I am enjoying the way you've put those swirls together, because I can almost see a little face in that. The mouth at the bottom, the nose in the middle, a definite eye up on the right hand side, and the suggestion of an eye on the left hand side. But what you've also got as well are those magnificent colours, the way the blues and the oranges work, and then the greens and the oranges work equally beautifully as well. So I think that is a very interesting piece of work, and certainly it ticks the brief. So we'll see it again, please. What a simple but effective piece of work we've got here. What I like very, very much is the way that you've lit the bottle with the reeds coming out of it with what appears to be a very golden light. However, we've also got blue coming into that. So where the shadow falls, that is very, very blue, which contrasts so well with that lovely golden colour. But we've also got an area behind the bottle that is also got lots of blues in it as well. So I think that works absolutely superbly. We've also got some harmony with the shapes, because they're very similar shapes, because obviously a shadow is similar to the shape that has cast it. However, it's also quite distorted as well, and it's a little bit lower, so that gives it kind of like an extra dimension for me. I think this is a really interesting piece of work. All I would suggest is that perhaps you used, there's a tool in Photoshop, I'm sure other processing programs are available and equally have this type of tool, but using the content aware fill tool would probably take away that heavy black band at the top, and I think that would then make this a really, really strong image, and certainly one that I could see in competition, perhaps in the league. I'm not sure, but do give that a try. But tonight I'm not going to hold it back, but I really think you've done beautifully with those colours and with those shapes. Well, this is very, very interesting, because it looks as though what you've captured here is you've captured some reflections on a circular stanchion or a circular piece of cladding that's highly reflective on the side of a building. And of course, what that has done is it's given us a completely different perspective on the reflection of the building that we're looking at. It's really, really sort of squashed it in as skinny as it can be, and almost flattened it as well. It almost looks like a section of the Flatiron building, and we can still see what it is though, but it's a very abstract version of what we would, you know, perhaps walk by without actually noticing. I like the fact that we've got curves going through this. I like that curve that's on the upper third, and I also like the way that it's been reflected over on the left hand side with that beautiful orange one, that beautiful orange curve halfway down, and also lower down on the left hand side what looks like the start of a banister or a handrail or something that's curving down. So I think that has harmony there. I'm not going to hold it back this evening, because as I've said before, there are a lot of strong images in tonight's competition, but it's a really interesting perspective. And, you know, it's something, let's be honest, that a lot of us would just walk by and not notice. So you've clearly got a really good eye, and you notice stuff like that, which will make you stand out as a photographer. So thank you. Well, this resting roo, I am I'm having a good look at it, and it certainly seems incredibly relaxed. It's not bothered that it's having its photograph taken. It appears to be looking at you, so that's really nice, because that means because it's looking at you, that means it's looking at me, and I feel directly I feel directly in contact with it. Lovely detail in the fur, and again we can see it relaxing it in its environment, and you've got some nice light coming in again from the right hand side, which is just giving us enough to add texture to that fur and also adding shape to the body of the animal as well. But is it a creative piece of work? I'm not so sure that it is quite as creative as some of the others in tonight's competition, so I'm not going to hold it back, but it certainly is a good study of this creature at peace and being relaxed. So it might work better in another competition, but unfortunately not tonight. Oh, a salty starburst, yes, and I've seen several images like this, and I love the way that we can actually capture the movement in those water drops, and we don't really realize quite how quickly they are moving until we take something like this. And I like the fact that, you know, we've got this very, very strong and very square structure, the groins moving out into the sea. But behind that, we've got all this wonderful flowing movement of the water. But as you say, then we've got this spectacular starburst of water drops just coming in that have clearly hit one of those groins there. So that is quite interesting. Very creative use of shutter speed, because in order to get that, you've not got a huge amount of movement in the water itself, but you have got that movement in those water drops. So that's very, very interesting. I like the fact as well that you convert it to black and white. We can see the detail without being distracted by colour. Perhaps the groins are a little bit dark for me. I'd love to see a little bit more detail in that. And perhaps, you know, another time, or maybe you've got a series of photos that you can do something with that could perhaps make this, because I can see this really, really working as an image that's a set, perhaps a triptych, or within a group of images to make a panel. I'm not going to hold it back tonight, but I do appreciate that timing that you've got there, because that really is good. Wow, silk stockings. And it certainly is an interesting image. What it's done here, the way you've laid them out, it does show us the diaphanous feeling that you get with them. Very ethereal, very soft, very, very movable. And looking at this here, what you've done is this almost looks like smoke. We had an image of smoke earlier, and certainly those swirling patterns are very, very reminiscent indeed of this particular one as well. I like the light background because it allows that dark to stand out really beautifully. My suggestion is, if you're going to do this again, perhaps just make sure that that background you've got it on is a little flatter or a little smoother, because I am distracted by the folds that you've got in what it's actually laid on. And I would also be a little bit careful as well, just making sure that you've got your focus on the right part of the image so we can enjoy all of those wonderful shapes. However, you have got beautiful composition with this. That diagonal that's going from the bottom left up to the top right works superbly, as does the graduation of the thickness, if you like, of the material. It's quite thick at the bottom, but then it kind of floats away off to the top. So I think that's been done very well. Thank you. It's always interesting to see these things, because it's something I think I mentioned about an image earlier. A lot of us would just walk by and not notice this type of thing. But what you've done here is you've isolated this telegraph pole or this electricity pole. I'm not sure which it might be, but we can just enjoy and concentrate on the abstract shapes that it makes. We've got lovely textures in the pole going up. We've got some quite sort of staccato parts of it as well. Those little steps that are going up really kind of add, I suppose, the salt in the caramel. I think they add an interest to it, and it also gives us a perspective. It tells us how fat that pole is at the top. But we've got these beautiful lines as well that act as leading lines that really do push us back to that very, very interesting pole. I think it's been very nicely cropped. You've really thought about your composition, and for that I am going to hold it back, please. Okay, summer gold. We have another spirograph type image here, and this one for me has quite a different feel to the other two that we've seen earlier. I like the fact that we've got like a graduation of color throughout. The earlier one was pink and white, and I think the other one was blue with that faded off to white, but having it in gold I think really does help to pull our eye right in, and the variations in those tones work very well indeed, because that helps to add a bit of dimension to your work as well. I like the circular composition, but I think it would be stronger if this were in a more square crop. Perhaps the framing around it to be equidistant to the edge. I think that would then make this one stand out that little bit more. But it is pleasing and I have enjoyed looking at it. And I definitely want to know what your secret is. I'd love to know how you did it. So please do share with me at the end. I'm sure Pete will slip a £5 your way if you do. Thank you.
I'm sure he won't.
Oh. Well, aren't these two absolutely charming characters? And, you know, again, in this competition, they have lifted my spirits. I look at them and who could not smile when they look at this? You know, we've got the lady in the Hawaiian sort of like outfit doing the hula dance and the gentleman next to her sort of like doing the manly thing by raising his weights. They're clearly enjoying themselves. They've got their sunglasses on. They've got that holiday vibe about them. I'm sad, though, that we can't see them in all their coloured glory. Perhaps the colours are fading, or perhaps the colours are coming off as these things do. And you decided you didn't want to show us that because that might distract us too much, or perhaps the colours were so awful and bright and garish that you didn't want to inflict it on us. I don't know. However, is this a creative image? Not as creative as some of the others, so I'm not going to hold it back. But it certainly has made me smile, and I'm sure it's made everyone here feel that bit of summer joy that we're all longing for in those very cold and dark mornings at the moment. Thank you.
Pete and Gary at Butlins.
Oh, well, the Bittern. This looks as though it could be at the shed at Ropley. And if it was, I'm sorry that I've missed it, because I do enjoy train photography and I like trains, and this one certainly looks like a bit of a beast here. And if I'd have known it was about, I would have definitely made the effort to go up and have a look at it. And I like the way you positioned yourself. You've done that really, really well. We've got as much information as we need about this particular mode of transport. We've got the number on the front. We can see part of the front as well. We can see the buffers. We can see all the pipe work and everything, and the lovely contrast between the red body and those strikingly red wheels. And looking down the carriages, we can see it coming out of its shed. So it does have a nice story about it. And the context has been carried on because we can see the older carriages behind and the train tracks as well, which does add to the story. But is it a creative piece of work? I do find myself questioning that again. I don't think it is. And I'm struggling as well to find what your imagination was in that, because to me, this does look like a fairly straight image. I would also be a little careful, just work on your focus a little bit. If I were taking this type of image, I would probably have my tripod. And I say probably because I am a bit lazy and a bit of a happy snapper, and then when I get home I'm always disappointed because I've missed a bit of focus or something. But F8 tripod, I don't think you can go wrong, and in particular with this type of shot. Thank you for sharing it, and I will be investigating the watercress line to see if it's still there straight after this competition. Wow, yes, and I'm guessing this must be a lighting display that's on at the moment, and certainly down at maybe Bournemouth Winter Gardens or other winter gardens that we see, you know, it's not unexpected to see this kind of lighting display. However, I look a little more closely at this one, and what I can see is that these dolphins are not either supported or suspended. So then that raises the question, how are they in this image? And then the penny drops, because you've obviously popped them into this image. What you've done though is you've done it very, very well indeed, because I can't really detect much of a join. You've worked really, really hard with this one. And if it's not composited, then I'm missing something. Perhaps you've cloned out the structures that's holding them in place. But I think you have composited it. But you've done it so well. I can see right through those dolphins and nothing interrupts my view to the leaves and the bushes behind. So that's been very, very nicely done indeed. I'm not going to hold it back, but I will commend you on how you've done it. Thank you. Well, this is another one that I want to kind of jump up and down a bit to and say I love it, because I've not seen anything like this before. It's usual for us to see images of fairground rides, but normally in all their colour and all their glory, with lights blazing against a very dark background. But you've shown me something incredibly different here. You've shown it beautifully lit in full daylight. You converted it to black and white, and what that has done is it's allowed me to really enjoy the structure of this particular fairground ride, plus also all the symmetry of where the lights are positioned on both the canopy and the arms coming out as well. The fact that you've taken away the stand gives it a very otherworldly feel. And for me, I think this works very, very well as a creative piece of work. It's also, excuse me again, it's also incredibly imaginative, because we wouldn't normally expect to see something like this presented in this way. My only critique would be perhaps just repositioning the ride there so it's centrally placed within your frame. I like the fact that you have vignetted the edges, that holds us in, but do be careful, because I can see just a couple of anomalies, certainly down on the lower left hand side, just where your perhaps your layer hasn't been brushed away adequately. So do be careful about that. Nonetheless, I am going to hold it back. Thank you. We are lucky in the United Kingdom that we can grow these absolutely spectacular plants in the garden. And I have to say that tulips are one of my favourites. They are just so cheerful. And after the daffodils have gone, the next thing I always look forward to are the tulips coming up, because they're so colourful, so joyful, and they last a long time, and they appear to be slug resistant, which is even better. This one you've isolated very, very carefully indeed. And I love the way that you've darkened down the leaves and perhaps sort of taken a little bit of the strength of the green out of it as well, because often in an image, certainly in a projected image, green can actually be quite overpowering. The way it's been lit allows us to enjoy all the textures as well. And although it's perhaps not as creative as some of the other images, I am enjoying what you've done. I would love to see just a little bit more space on the right hand side, because I feel it's just a little bit one of the petals is just touching the edge of the frame, and I think by allowing us that little bit of extra space, I think that would make your image that bit stronger. And because it's the head of the bloom itself is circular, cropping out a little bit more of the bottom wouldn't hurt, because we've got enough information. We don't need to include quite so much of the stalk and the frame and the leaves. We know that they're there. We can see that from what you've already got. I just think that would make it a wee bit stronger. So on this occasion, I'm not going to hold it back. Righty-ho, last one, winter scene. And as some of you, I'm sure you know, I live in the New Forest and I walk with the dogs on the forest every single day. And it's always such a pleasure to look up into the canopy of leaves that are above me, because that really does give me the story of where we are in the seasons. And looking at this, it looks like you've picked autumn time. We can see we've got some leaves on the trees. We've got some that are just going golden, and it looks like you've got a beech tree there that has actually lost all its leaves as well. The dreaded ivy is as green and healthy as it ever always is, but we can see that the changes are happening within the actual trees surrounding this particular image. I love the way that you've looked straight up, because what's happened there is all the surrounding branches coming into the image actually act as leading lines and hold us right in. But I find I am looking around that and looking for just a single point of interest that my eye can rest on, and I'm struggling to find that. I don't think this is quite as strong as some of the others, but it certainly does have a very beautiful feel, and that light, that lovely golden light coming in, just kissing the tops of some of those branches, has worked very well for you. So thank you very much for sharing it with us.
Right.
16 images
16.
held. My goodness me, how many highly commendeds am I allowed?
As many as you would like.
Perfect.
Right.
Oh, excuse me.
So you
Right.
can like
Yeah,
that on like box,
light
yeah?
box is perfect. Yes. So I would like my first highly commended to go to number 30, old photo.
No, I don't want you to do that. Oh, here we go. Right, that's that one, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, I like that. I don't know why it won't let me give it a highly commended.
Can you give it a bronze?
I don't know. I don't understand why it worked earlier. A minute.
I think.
Tell you what I'll do is I'll give it a 9.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to go 9th place. See, it's because we don't use it this often.
That's all
As
right.
you can see.
Dicentra is kind of like the bane of most clubs.
Yes.
That's
Okay. I know that I've given. I know which ones we've done. So I've given it 9.
perfect.
9th. Yeah.
Okay. My next highly commended, I think I would like to give to number 26, Katie Double Take. My next highly commended is going to be number 4, Arctic Hues. If we can scroll down again.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Cool. And if we go back up. My next highly commended is going to be number 27, Landscape in a Crystal Ball. Right, so
Down to that.
I'm going to give one more highly commended because this is such a good competition, and it really has been quite interesting to judge because everyone has a slightly different take on what is imaginative or what is creative. And it has been quite a pleasure to see what, you know, to see how people's minds work and see how they think. Actually, I'm going to give two more highly commended.
Okay.
So number 44, Ride of the Future, is going to be highly commended. And number 2, A Passionate Gargoyle, is also going to be highly commended. Lovely. Now, in 3rd place, good
drum roll.
grief. This is very hard because they are all of them lovely images. They each have something to commend them, and if you haven't got a placing but you have been held back, you know, don't be disheartened because this is a tough old job, and it's horrible to disappoint people, and I wish I could give you all highly commended, but I have to draw the line somewhere, or Pete might not invite me back.
Well, none of them are mine, so I don't care. I mean, yes, do whatever you would like.
Oh God, here we go. Right.
Bad boy.
In 3rd place.
Yeah.
In 3rd place, I would like to give that to number 13, Dominion. I think that really is an absolutely super piece of work. It's striking. It has connotations of like me sat as an ant on the floor looking up at one of these women from Handmaid's Tale, but it's wonderful. I think that really is absolutely fabulous.
Good.
Well done. In 2nd place, I would like that to go to number 32, Planet Bubble. To have the patience and the skill to get not only the lighting right, but get in close enough to that bubble and have it in absolute perfect focus where we can see all those marvelous swirls around it, I think is really cleverly done, as well as having that very limited color palette. I think that's gorgeous, and I can see that on a gallery wall. And in 1st place, it's got to be the Christmas party. Of course it is. You knew it all.
I did.
Yeah, you
I
did.
think everybody did.
I love it. I absolutely love it. You know, as judges, you know, we're supposed to be sort of like, you know, quite calm or what have you, but I don't care. It's Christmas. You've got Brussels sprouts, you've got carrots, you've got reindeer, and you've got a cat playing the piano. What is not to love? Well done. It's super.
Right.
And I hope whosever image this is, you've turned this into a Christmas card and you're going to send it to all your friends.
I haven't. This is next year's picture. I'd already done this year's, and this one was a quick one that I did at the club the other night.
Fantastic.
So
I can see we're going to have a problem here. Oh no, we're not. We should, right. Okay. Now, scores. Right, okay, just bear with me a sec.
It's exciting, isn't it? Waiting to see who's got what.
Is it?
Some of us
me.
know. We could,
Oh, well, I
Well, we
know
know
it's
who's
me.
won, but
we could
for some
own
reason
up.
the names aren't on there. Just let me do it that
I
way.
don't think anybody's too embarrassed to admit to any of them.
No. Just bear with me a sec.
Well, I don't know about the one referencing Maria. Somebody might be embarrassed.
Yeah, somebody's going to be
Oh,
embarrassed. Who's
Somebody's
that?
for
Is
high
that you,
jump, I think.
Gary?
Still a creative title,
It was a creative
and
title.
it wasn't Gary.
Make
Um,
this on honesty time, Peter.
That's what I just said. It wasn't you.
No.
I don't know who else
I
it
was
could have
good.
been.
So there's one candidate left then.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Maria, that leaves with the holes cut out was made by Leaf Cutter B.
Was
So
it?
good luck chasing that around the garden with some scissors and a plastic bag.
Oh, gosh, yeah, no, you couldn't do that, could you? Oh, no.
Right. Okay. Third, second, and so third was Terry.
No, it was Keith.
Eh? Sorry, you were
was
second,
Keith.
weren't you? Third was Keith with his Dominion.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And second was Terry with Planet Bubble. And then
Yep.
first, as we all knew, because we all recognised, was Dennis Peters.
Yeah.
So well done,
Only
Dennis.
one person.
Yeah, well done.
Very
Well done.
Very
Well
well
done,
done. I
Dennis.
love it. I love it.
And where are we?
Yeah, I've wondered for a long time, those sort of photographs that are produced, how a judge would view them. So now I know.
Better than you, I'll tell you that.
But you know how I do it, Gary, that it might not be to everyone's
Oh,
liking.
no, but I did wonder how a judge would view them.
Well, it appealed to the child in me. So we all need to get in touch with our inner child, I reckon.
Yeah.
So what we got, the old photo, whose was that? No, I'll look that up.
That's
Me,
Peter's.
Peter Yeldon.
That was who, sorry?
Peter's.
Peter, yeah, Pete Eldon's.
Yeah.
Landscape in a Crystal Ball.
That's mine.
Who's that, Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ride of the Future? No. Katie Double Take was Gary.
Yeah.
Arctic Hughes,
Me, Dave McGill.
that's Dave McGill. And a Passionate Gargoyle was, I believe, just a second. That was
Colin.
Colin Leach.
Yeah.
So there's just one that we don't know who it was, which was I've got them here with the names on. I don't know why the names aren't on there. What was the other one was highly commended?
Right.
The old
Roundabout in the
photo-
Sky thing, wasn't it?
The Ride of the Future.
Right.
The old
Yeah.
photo.
Ride of the Future,
Ride of the
yeah.
Future, yeah. That was Colin Leach as well.
Okay.
Right.
Gargoyle,
And Dave, you need to explain your spirograph thing.
yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Come on then, Dave. Explain away.
Well, after the light painting session,
Yeah.
I've never done anything like that before. So I tried various torches, and you want quite a dull torch, and then it's a matter of it's on a long piece of string, and you throw it in different directions, and to get different shapes, put a weight part way down the string, and sometimes set the weight spinning before you throw the torch away. Or you can throw the weight in a different direction, torch in another direction. 90% just come out as looks like a ball of string. It's rubbish, and some work.
Oh, right. They're really good.
But Maria, you're
So,
right.
and
It's the camera looking up. You got it bang on.
So the camera is on the floor.
Well, on a
Fabulous.
tripod looking up. Yeah,
Excellent. Oh,
30-second
thank you.
exposure each time.
Brilliant.
Well done, everybody. There were some great entries there. And thank you, Maria, for marking that and scoring it. I'm sure you had fun.
I did.
It'll be, well, the only concern, the winner always picks next year's subject. which is a bit of a concern as to who won. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to be miniature models.
I've got a year to think of something, haven't I?
Yeah, it's going to be
Yeah,
interesting.
you
one.
have.
Oh,
But give us plenty of warning.
I will.
But no, I'm sure we'd all like to put our hands together and thank Maria, because she did a great job.
No, thanks. It was a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there was some great entries there. And I thought it was very difficult, but I think Dennis's did stand out, I think. Very good. I've just got a few things to say to them, Maria. So you,
Yeah, no, that's fine. I wish you all happy Christmas, and hopefully I'll see you again next year.
yeah, hopefully, I think we'd love
Merry
to have you
Christmas to
back.
you.
Thank
We'll see you for the league match anyway in
Thanks.
February.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Maria.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Well done, everybody. Some good entries there. Very difficult. We got a slight technical hitch next week. We were going to have the Christmas party on Tuesday night, but we found out last night they've gone and moved the football from Wednesday night to Tuesday night, and I have already purchased. I believe Gary has probably purchased some tickets as well.
I have purchased tickets as
Um,
well. Yeah.
More than happy to have it on Wednesday night if everybody else is happy with that. I've just got to wait to hear that the hall is available. I've contacted her today. She hasn't got back to me yet, but as far as I'm aware, nobody uses it Wednesday nights. So who's up for a Wednesday night?
No, it's got to be Tuesday.
Got to be Tuesday. I'll give you the keys.
Oh dear.
I'll give you the keys and show you how to unlock. I'm really frustrated that they've moved it
That's
this
okay.
late.
Don't worry. Don't worry. We know your
No,
first
it's
love.
not. It's
all right?
not right, is it? It's not. I don't like
We
doing
know
it.
your first love, Peter.
Well, it's not quite my first love, but it's not far off. But I'm falling out of love with them.
I should have been at football tonight, as it turned out. I was
Yeah.
going to be here tonight. I was supposed to be away, but they postponed it.
Oh, have they hard pitch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, we got lucky then, didn't we?
Yeah.
Well, also tonight worked better from Zoom because who wants to go out in this tonight, eh?
Indeed,
Mm.
yeah.
Now next week it is back up into double digits, so it should be, the weather should be okay.
It'll be wet then.
Eh? Probably going to be a little bit wet. The Sunday's heavy rain. So as long as it don't freeze, well, it's not going to freeze Monday and Tuesday. So if I can get it done for Wednesday, we're all good for that, are we?
Yeah, fine for me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Lovely. I don't think it'll be a problem, but if it is, I'll let you know anyway. As soon as she gets back to me. She's not very quick at getting back. I'll probably have to ring her.
Yeah.
Peter, do you want me to do
numbers?
anything for the
Yeah.
queue?
I'll give you a ring, Jackie.
Yeah.
Once I know what's happening, thank you.
Okay, fine.
Do what, Gary?
Do you want to know numbers? How many will be?
Well, yeah, if a show of hands, if you're going to turn up next Wednesday would help me.
All I can say is yes.
Can't the dog put his paw up?
Sadly, he
what's
died
that?
in 2009.
I should be there, Peter.
Yeah. Okay, Cole. Sylvia, Jackie, Roy. I'll just make a note of names, then I won't send you an email then saying are you coming or not. Karen, you okay?
Think so.
Yeah.
Not definite, but think so.
No, okay, fine. Dave McGill's, yes. Fine. Neddy, you said yeah, didn't you? Terry, John?
Probably,
Probably, yeah. Okay.
unless something
fine,
unless something comes up.
I just need a rough
Fine,
idea
better.
to get some food together. I don't want to get a load of food and nobody turns up. I'll be eating sausage rolls all Christmas.
Tough call.
Yeah, tough call. Okay, lovely. Right. What did you all think? Thanks for setting that, Keith. That's the
Yeah, it's good.
subject. It's good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Got everybody thinking.
Attracted
Yeah.
a lot of good entries, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why our PDIs don't include that much variety normally.
Yes. Well, on an open subject.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just lovely to see.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you might have opened it up now.
Well, I hope so. I hope
Yeah.
hope it's opened the people's minds to the fact that there's a lot of creativity in the club, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was some good stuff there, and it's difficult to know what to do sometimes, but when you put your mind to it, just gets everybody thinking, doesn't it? I don't think she's realised about the mirror facility in Affinity, because there were a couple, 2 or 3 mirror ones, weren't there?
Yeah.
And she was a bit puzzled as to how we'd done it. But obviously Keith has shown us the light with those, so to speak. Okay, anybody
Club
else
secret now.
got anything to say about anything? I'll get
Yeah.
a list out of the winners. Who
Bob,
said yes?
me.
Oh,
What
hello,
size
Karen.
are your crystal balls?
Sorry?
What size are your balls?
We'll leave you two to it.
So no.
Oh God, he's measuring them.
Measuring it. Hang on, he's just taking his trousers down. He won't be a minute.
There's 2 sizes, aren't there? There's a
Yeah,
small one
this
and a
one's
bigger one.
This is a big one.
And it's a big one.
Yeah.
And is that better to have and use?
Can you see it?
Yeah.
It's a bit
That's the
harder.
big-
It's harder to hold in your hand because it's
Yeah,
quite
it's about
heavy.
hand size, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite heavy.
Yeah.
They are quite heavy, different like around with you.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
Smaller
we,
ones maybe
maybe in
better.
the new year, Bob, we could bring it along and use it
Yeah.
inside, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Can you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll
Yeah.
have a play with his ball in the
Like
oh.
flowers and things. You can put. That's the size of it.
Okay, thank
But
you.
it's quite heavy to hold the camera at the same time.
Yeah. So you need to do what you did in the picture and put it on something
Yeah.
solid. Yeah.
Trig point, wasn't it?
Eh?
Pardon?
It was on a trig point.
Yeah, it's on the trig point up
Yeah.
at what's it? Just north of Stockbridge. Danebury. Danebury
Oh,
Green.
Danebury.
Lovely. Okay, folks. Right.
That was my first try with the ball. I think first or second try.
Oh,
All
right.
right.
Like 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
And then, like she said, you turned the picture up
Yeah,
inside the ball.
I
You
flipped the
flipped
ball,
it round. Yeah.
cut it out and flipped it.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, I know how to go. I put it on the sleepers at the back, positioned it quite carefully, decided yes, I was quite happy with the picture, walked away, went back to my tripod, and with that, it rolled off the sleepers straight on the ground. It's got a dirty great crack in it.
Yeah.
Oh.
You see a woman down at Highcliffe doing it, and she dropped it as well. Put a
It's
big chip
annoying.
in it. Yeah.
Yeah. They
Put a big chip
don't
in
like
it.
being dropped.
No. And
Doesn't look
plus, you
alike.
got to make sure your fingerprints aren't all over it,
Yeah, like she said.
and
Yeah.
be careful you don't leave it in the sun because it will ignite
Oh,
as
yeah.
a magnifying glass.
Magnifying glass.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it?
You can
Oh,
get
okay.
different sizes. You can get, I think that's the biggest, and they go down in size.
Yeah, I just read that, like you were saying, it was big for your hand, but
Yeah,
it was better for the image.
yeah,
Yeah. Get more in it and get a better photo, I
Mm.
guess.
the smaller one you should be able to hold it in your fingers like that,
Mm.
but that one you can't. It's too heavy.
But then it's harder to get the picture in, isn't it?
Yeah,
Right, depends how close you are, I suppose, to the subject. But it just
yeah. You can
it
use
don't-
a macro lens on it and get closer
Yeah.
to it.
Oh no, I haven't got a macro lens.
You have on yours, haven't you? It adjusts.
Not really. It adjusts to a point.
Christmas is coming.
Yeah,
Yeah. Is he getting you a new camera?
I doubt it.
What? Do you want me to have a word with him?
Got to pay for the heating.
Hey? Say again.
Got to pay for the heating.
Ah, bless.
No,
Oh,
only
dear.
kidding.
Okay, folks. Right. Hopefully, I'll see you all or most of you next week.
Yep,
Okay.
thanks
Yeah,
for
I'll see
organising
you
it all.
after
Yeah.
Christmas.
Okay.
yeah.
If not,
Yeah.
see you after
Yeah.
Christmas. Have a good
Christmas.
break.
Night,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
Good
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next week.